G'day, I'm Dante St. James, and today we're talking about bringing the act of innovation into your small business or workplace without, having all the big budgets of the big innovative companies, the Googles and the Metas and all those things. Although what you'll probably find is they're a little less innovative these days now. They're really big and very bulky than you probably are in your small one person or two or three person business anyway. So let's get started. So first up, a really, really short one today, because we're going to be covering, a very simple concept, but what it really requires of you is to go and actually do it. So just going to give you some pointers. You don't have to be Steve Jobs or Sergey Brin or Larry Page or bloody Oprah Winfrey for that matter. There's a myth that innovation is invention. And that's not necessarily the case. Innovation isn't necessarily you've invented a device, you've invented a process, you've invented some kind of new way of doing something that's been done before. It doesn't necessarily have to involve patents and new products and disruption, although quite often it does. And particularly the things that we hear so much about, the the inventions and the highly invested, very, very successful startups seem to have that in common. They seem to be a new product that has a patent that's protectable because, investors do like to invest in things that do have some kind of moat around them or some protection of what that intellectual property is. And they tend to be disruptive, right? Those things that have changed the way it's done in an entire industry or in an entire country or the whole world. The reality is, most innovation is just incremental improvement, just small improvements that happen along the way as a manner of thinking and a manner of acting in your business that doesn't reward things always staying the same. It always questions, is there a better way for us to do this? Is there a more efficient way for us to do this? Often that results in better processes. And by far, most innovation occurs not in engineering or in software, but in process re-engineering, looking at what you're already doing and making changes to sort of tweak and change and make it a little bit better. That can improve workflow by making it faster. It could make, rather than faster, make things a higher quality. And this is one of the things that I think people get wrong about AI, is they assume AI is all about making things faster. And in many cases, it's actually about making things more consistent and much better quality. Now, you probably see posts on LinkedIn that would laugh at that idea because they certainly don't add much quality there. What we're talking about, though, is, some of the hugely disruptive things that are happening in protein folding and coming up with new vaccines and all that sort of thing, rather than thinking about like content creation in terms of what we see as the output of AI in so many cases these days. It also can lead to less waste, which is where so much stuff is lost out of a business in there. So Australia ranks about 19th in the developed world for R&D spend. So we're very low on how much we spend in research and development. Most of that happening through universities and being government funded. We don't have a lot of private sector investment, not in R&D. And this is where I guess venture capital firms and private equity firms do tend to want to bet on a sure thing, especially in Australia, where we have much tighter fiduciary responsibilities than they say they have in the US or China. But it does beat the average for innovation activity because we're very, very good at adopting and adapting. So adopting new technologies very quickly, often quicker than others in the world, and adapting to new workflows and new processes. So it's just like we have an innovation mentality in Australia, but it doesn't show up necessarily in the way we spend on research or in the output of technology that other countries may have. And that's just a numbers game. There's really only 26, 27 million of us, not a billion. So it's a very big difference when it comes to the amount of output we can have. But the output as a per capita number is actually rather high. And we do definitely, bat above our average in Australia. So the first strategy of trying to bring this into your business or into your workplace is to stop, get comfortable with the idea of stopping, of not adding new ideas to a plate that's already full. And this is something which really a lot of people struggle with, particularly in Australia. We need to add more software. We need to add more AI. We need to add more staff. And what it is the idea that we've got to stop doing a few things, right? Can we stop doing this manually? Well, what would that look like? Do we automate it? Is there software that can do this? Do we eliminate some things. Is there some stuff that we're doing? Like I do this with software subscriptions every couple of months because they seem to creep up every couple of months. And before I know it, I'm looking at my bank account and going, why am I spending so much on this? And it turns out I've just forgotten that there's a ton of things I haven't switched off over the last couple of months. And then there's the delegation. Is there someone else who can do this cheaper than me? And this is something I've had to become very comfortable with myself, which is the idea that accounting is not my strong point. I have to delegate that to accountants. Legal stuff, well, not a lawyer, so clearly I can't do that. That gets given the lawyers, even down to the point where I'm opening a new presence in Brisbane. And with that presence in Brisbane, I've had to say, well, I can't be there all the time. I can be there a lot, but I can't be there all the time because I've got responsibilities here in Darwin that I've got to fulfill. So what I need to do is hire someone there in order to carry out that training work in Brisbane, delegating it to someone because it costs too much for me to be there, but it'll cost someone less if they're already there. So what you need to do is put together the stop doing list. What can you automate? And that can be a hard thing to do because if you don't know the technologies and how to work with those technologies, that might be a little hard to put together. But just think about what can be automated in what you're currently doing. Is there a process within your Outlook and your Microsoft 365 or Copilot that can automate some of the stuff you're doing every day, particularly around your calendar and your email? Is there something you can eliminate? Is there a piece of software that you are paying for constantly that's dragging out money from your bank account, but you don't even use it anymore? But I also say, is there a product that you're selling that you need to eliminate? I'm in the process of looking at eliminating a particular line of business that I've been doing for the last 3 years and just looking at it and going, it's just not performing to where I need it to be. So, what do I do with that? So, I'm looking at perhaps eliminating that line of business to make room for the resources to go into other things. And then, what can you delegate? What is something you're doing which you really shouldn't be doing because it actually costs too much per hour for you to be dedicated to that thing instead of the thing that you are much better off doing? The second strategy we're looking at is killing off those stupid rules. And, there's the red line rules, which are all very much around your compliance, your legal, your safety stuff. You don't get rid of that because that's there to save people's lives and to keep you financially responsible. But there's a few what we call green line rules. And these are some cultures and some habits that we can kind of kill off. And that's one of the things where we go, this particular process, it goes from step A to step B. Why does it go via 15 different people to get an approval when really it only needs one? So this is like large corporations and government organizations tend to get these because there's a lot of people who are very protective of their pile, and they will go, well, I need to be consulted about this because I always have been. When in reality, they don't add anything more except for putting more dot points in the document and making it more complicated and harder to get that through. I had a situation mid last year where I was talking to someone who is in a government department, and they were trying to get a new training deck approved. They had spent 2 years working on this training slide deck. 2 years. 2 years. And it had sat stuck with one person for 6 months without moving forward. So the whole agency could not move forward because this one person had been sitting with this for 6 months. And there's no punishment, there's no incentive to move faster because, well, what are they going to do? Fire you? That's government. They don't. So that's how it can go horribly wrong. So what are the stupid rules? And I also say, what are the stupid people? Because often those stupid rules are built around stupid people. Not necessarily that they're stupid, but really that they're doing things and being part of a process they were never really needing to be part of. There's a lot of legacy processes that came in during COVID, which a lot of organizations have kept on as, as biblical truth for their organization, but they haven't re-looked at those processes to say, hey, do we really need this to happen? Or is this some duplication that we really don't need anymore? So there's about a 45-minute sort of workshop process you can go through where you sit with your team and you ask everyone, what stops you getting a job done? And this is an enlightening experience where people will come to you with all kinds of things where they just go, this is the crazy stuff that's going on that's stopping us getting this done. You go, holy crap, how are we even getting anything done around here? And then map out your rules around what their impact is of having those rules versus the ease of getting that work done. What rules are slowing things down? Are they a red rule? Are they a green rule? Are they something which can be reviewed, or are they something you must have? And then what you do is you kill off those high impact, easy to change rules. The ones that sit in the in the green basket, they're the ones that you can possibly kill off, as long as they're not having massive ongoing problems down the track. And that's why you get more than one person in the room if you're in a workplace, or if you are the business and there's no one else but you. That's where you probably just need someone else to sit down with you. Maybe making an appointment with your local business enterprise center or something like that, who can look at that and go, "Hey, have you considered what the what the downstream impact of this may be?" That's a really good way of doing it. Just spend 45 minutes once in this next month and just ask yourself, what is stopping you doing the work you want to do? And then look at the rules you've got in place and assess them, whether they are ridiculous, like green rules, which have just been added for reasons that you can't even remember, or are they the red rules that you need in place for safety and compliance and all your legal requirements? The next strategy is the physics of efficiency, which comes around this idea from Dave Brailsford, which is it's not about doing one thing 100% better. It's about doing 100 things 1% better. So, yeah, that little bit of that 1% better every day mentality. And this is a really important skill to have, particularly in very fast-paced, agile little environments like our little baby businesses, where we can't just burn everything down and start again every time things get hard. We have to really look at where those compounded small gains can be. So what we look at is like, is there a pebble in your shoe as you're walking along in your life and your business that's, and I'm talking metaphorically here, is there a pebble in your shoe that's making your walking uncomfortable and inefficient? Because it might be really easy for you to remove the pebble from under your shoe and things will be much better. But as we get into our lives and things get important and other things are not as important, we tend to think, well, the pebble in our shoe is not necessarily the thing that's bothering us that much at the moment. Things are still moving, just not as fast as they should. And then there's other things in like what would improve your life. For me, I had to assess my desk space. So I've got my laptop computer that I'm pointing at right now, and then I've got a big monitor up the top here. I only ever have two, but most of the people I work with have three. They have a laptop here, and then, sorry, a screen here, and a laptop here. Up to three screens going all at once. And I look at that and it goes, well, that's, two screens that will take my focus away from what I'm meant to be doing on the one screen in the middle. So why don't I just reduce that down? So usually what happens is when I'm not on a webinar like this, I close the laptop and just have the one big screen. And for me, that helps me in a little 1% way of moving forward without so many distractions. Because if I've got email over there, I never stop looking at email because the email will come and it will keep coming and it never stops. Then I might have one over here with, I don't know, a social media feed on it that's yelling for my attention. And I've got my work in the center. And of course, if I'm trying to focus in on this and I've got these flashing away with notifications at me, it's going to be hard for someone who has attention issues like I do to be able to overcome that. So the 1% daily improvement for me was just simply reducing my monitors down to one. That made a difference. Also, my phone sits face down on my desk. I don't see the notifications and I put it on sleep. Not sleep mode, but I put it on do not disturb mode while I'm in the office. And then what I do is when it gets to a certain time, I will then go, okay, I'll pick it up and check to see if anything important's come up. And I can see that nothing important's come up on my phone in the last 2 hours. So put that back down and I get back into it. So fix cheap things that will make the difference. Like there's things like, oh gosh, a perfect example would be there was a step that was going from the bathroom into the back of the kitchen at one of the cafes I have in North Queensland. And what happened, this step was just an uneven, it was a weird height. So people could often would either slip on it or would miss it or trip over it when they're going into it. And it was something which we could fix so easily, but just never did. It was a really, really quick fix by putting a small ramp there. We could put a plastic ramp fitted in there that would actually stop that from happening. The whole process cost $250. And what had happened for 7 years before I bought this place, that they had put up with this. So every day there was this little annoyance every time they go into the staff room and the bathroom behind the staff area, behind the kitchen area. Every time it would annoy them and they would trip. And 7 years, $250. We fixed it like that. And it's just on those little 1% improvements. And these little things compound when you fix little things along the way. Some of the little things that I fix in my general vicinity are having a box of tissues at my desk, because you never know when you're going to need them. And I need them a lot because I get glossy on my face up here, right? So I need to wipe off the grease because I've got oily skin. Those little things I notice will annoy me if I can't fix them. And if I have to go hunting around for a tissue to do that with, that's going to annoy me more. So innovation isn't like all this just going and running around and trying to, create brand new things. What you need to do is just go and try and do little things, little baby things. That's all you need to do. You don't need to go and do huge things, but you might have some huge things. But if you do fix 1% every day, you get about an annual result of about 37 times exponential growth when you do that. And that doesn't necessarily mean you grow 37 times in your income or your revenue, but I'm saying it 37 times more efficient, more effective, or in your case, just 37 times happier than what you normally would be when all those little things are annoying you. The next one is visual management. And this is where you have to say, can someone who isn't you or who isn't close to you understand your work status in 30 seconds? So they can look at what you're doing and work out where you're at with it within 30 seconds. And this is where things like Trello have been very handy in this, and a lot of Atlassian has their version of these workflow management tools, and you might have ClickUp or some other tools like this, Monday.com, where you've got ideas that are waiting to be done. You've got the to do, which you still haven't started yet, or the things that are being done right now that might be blocked or they might be moving. Got notes in there, and then done. I use Trello as my workflow management system simply because it's simple. It's just rows, right? Row one is to do, doing, done. That's it. 3 columns. That's all I need. And that, if it was any more complicated, I wouldn't use it. And I would just get sick of it. I get annoyed with it, and I wouldn't be able to tell within 30 seconds where any piece of work in the entire organization is at. So even if it's just a maintenance request in the menswear store in Tari in New South Wales, or whether it's my new staff member onboarding in Brisbane office going, okay, I need to get this done. I've got my to-do, doing, and done. So everything gets dropped in there, and my virtual assistant will drop that stuff in there for me. So I'm not constantly managing it, but I need to be able to go in there at any time during the day and go, all right, what do I need to be doing? And if I can't see it within 30 seconds, I'm not going to do it, right? So this is a way to really get that visual boards or even physical boards, like a whiteboard behind you with this stuff on it, can be remarkably effective to get things done. That's not massive world-changing innovation. What it is just using the things around you in ways you possibly haven't done before. If you look at trades, for example, you might have a guy who's got his van. It's a bit of a mess, so he might have a few little things he has to do. So in 5 seconds, he can sort through, look at the rubbish he needs to do, clear the rubbish out, then set things in order in the van, and then standardize so that every van in his company is the same. And this is something I know that a friend of mine who owns an electrical contracting firm does all the time, is that they've got a standardized way that the vans are laid out so that anybody could hop in anyone else's van at any time and have everything they need in the right place at the right time. And it has made a massive difference for him. But what it did require is stopping at the first thing. Remember, we saw stop was the first step. We had to stop and clear out the junk because, blokes collect junk in their vans. They really, really do. And when it makes it just, they might know where it is, but no one else could step in there and see what's there as well. So sorting out that rubbish, stopping, sorting out the rubbish, setting a process in place, and then standardizing that for everybody. And rather than spending 10 minutes a day searching for something, you have 40 hours of lost billable time per year per technician. That's just by doing that. 40 hours of lost billable time across 30 technicians. That's a lot of lost time per year. That's costing a lot of money. Sometimes innovation is just looking for the gaps and it's correcting them, right? You could have a safety audit checklist that helps. Service innovation can just simply be safety, right? You become a consultant to your own business not just a fixer. So if you're looking at, okay, looking at every time there's a call out for a trade, let's just say an electrician, right? When a sparky goes out, they've got a safety audit checklist before they go out. So you've got this system that you've consulted into them to say, this is the system you're going to use before you go out. Quick scan around the truck to make sure everything's in there, making sure it's got fuel, making sure everything works. Okay, great. Now let's go. So that kind of thing is innovative because it's something which hasn't been present in your business before. Like I said, doesn't have to be a next great app. It can just simply be looking at your processes. Something I do every year at Christmas because New Year's Day particularly is a big time for me to do this. But it's something which the innovation for me is bringing this into every week, just doing one small thing that I address every week to make things better. Hospitality and retail, in my case, there's a waste wall. So, having bins that go in, that everything goes in the right place. So visualizing where the food waste goes, where the plastic waste goes, where the landfill waste goes, where the recyclables go. That was something which we actually had to do in one of the kitchens in a cafe in Innisfail in Queensland. We had to make a very big change of that because the local council had changed the way that these are being picked up, and the local waste control was actually taking on the same council's systems because they were the outsourced provider for the council as well. So even the commercial premises had to take this on, which meant changing the way that we sorted our rubbish. So that then said, okay, well, how do we make this happen so that it's going to be easy for everyone? And we just color coded everything to the same as what they would have at home, right? Green bin for green waste, red top bin for landfill, yellow bin for recyclables. And they got it, right? Even though once upon a time it used to be one bin for everything, over a very short period of time, they got it right. Or having restaurants that don't have any sort of, vegan options or protein plus add-ons or something like that. Like one thing I noticed that Virgin Australia has done in their business class, I just had the very nice privilege to fly in business class recently with Virgin, not boasting at all, but it was nice. And what they've done is they've got two meals, right? One is a meat-based meal, usually chicken, and then they've got a vegetarian meal, which is generally a pasta-based meal of some description, that they then have the add-on of protein to it. So you can have either the chicken, which is the main meat meal, or you can have the pasta, but you can add chicken to it. So what they've done is they've taken that flexitarian engineering of saying, we haven't just got this meat one and this veggie one. You can actually have the veggie one, but add meat as well. And it makes no difference to them because it's the meat they're already using in the other meal. And then there's those closed loop systems where you might go, okay, we are not going to waste any food waste. All food waste is going into composting, which is used to put in the garden to grow more ingredients for the kitchen. Very few places have the ability to do that. Although I did see a complete side thing, not related to anything here. I saw an ad for a cafe in Scottsdale in Tasmania last night, which I looked at and went, oh, you could so do this kind of thing with that place. Anyway, not going to Tasmania anytime soon. These are hospitality and retail businesses have very razor thin margins. They don't make a lot of money on top of what they have to spend. So looking for those innovative cost savings and innovative ways of doing things better and faster makes a very outsized difference to the way they operate. So again, innovation doesn't mean upending everything. It just means perhaps looking at how things can be done a little bit better. Then there's the bad idea brainstorm. I love this concept. I haven't sat down and done it yet, but I really, really want to. What it is, it's looking for getting people comfortable with bad ideas and coming up with ideas that aren't necessarily right on without them feeling like they're going to be crucified for it. So you put a problem out there and you ask for good ideas, and people often are very silent about it. So they won't go, oh, I don't have any ideas. No ideas, because they're scared of making mistakes. So what we do, we flip it and say, all right, here's the problem. How can we make it worse? Which then brings on a little bit of laughter because everyone knows how to make things worse because there's no risk there, right? Because we're not going to make things worse. So there's no risk of you looking stupid. You actually look creative. What happens is those ways of making it worse, you can often find a kernel of truth in there that you can flip on its head and go, well, if that makes it worse, what's the opposite? Because the opposite could make it better. Things like, how can we ruin our customer service experience? Oh, we won't answer the phone. We go, okay, so if that makes it worse, what could make it better? And that opposite will be, well, installing an auto SMS system for missed calls. So if we miss a call, it immediately messages them back and says, hey, we'll be back to you soon. And SMS is our sales department to be able to call this person back. Great idea. How much is it going to cost? Not much at all. For the cost of all the lost business we have at the moment, this could be a great idea. So these little things, that the whole thing of don't ask for the good ideas from everybody because no one's got any, and they're all too risk averse to give you any ideas because they don't want to look dumb. Ask them what could make what you're currently doing worse. That will see some great innovative ideas coming through from your team. And then when there's the leadership side of it, so you got to protect yourself a little bit as the leader in your business. There's a not to do list in there, and I've had to get really strict on this as well. I work on my own stuff before 8:30 a.m., which protects my morning time for very creative, deep work I want to do. So no meetings before that if I can avoid it. Sometimes there's a 7:30 a.m. meeting, but I do try to avoid them. No meetings without agendas. If I'm having a meeting that has no agenda, it's a social call and not a business meeting. So that's what I have to do is like, if someone says, hey, I want to catch up for coffee with you, I go, oh, what's the subject of what's the subject we'll be talking about? They go, oh, I just want to sort of catch up. And I'm like, oh, I really need to be very careful of my time. I need to, I'll have to put this off for a couple of weeks until I've got a bit more capacity. I'm really just trying to focus in on business right now. And what will happen, people will respect your time a little bit better. You'll respect your time a bit better. And you won't have so many useless coffee catch-ups that don't actually lead anywhere. And also then, one of the things I have to get really good at myself with particularly the hospitality side of the business is not micromanaging social media. Because as you can imagine, I have a few thoughts about social media, having been in that realm for 20 years now and working with Meta and being a LinkedIn top voice. I have thoughts and opinions. And unfortunately, those thoughts and opinions don't translate well to a bunch of people in a cafe who just want to, produce the things they want to produce because they're on the ground seeing what's going on. They know the customer. I don't. I've got thoughts. They've got experiences. I step out of the way and stop micromanaging to do that. I might think I have all the answers, but the reality is I'm not in Innisfail or in Cairns. I get it once a year and that's it. I have no idea what goes on in that business apart from what I sign off on with payroll and expenses. So to be honest, stop micromanaging the things which other people can do better and probably cheaper and more efficiently than you can anyway. Take out a list like this, tape it to your monitor or your desk if you need to, or just understand that often you are the bottleneck in your own business. So protecting your time is an act of innovation. That gives you the space to innovate in some ideas and go, well, if I'm the bottleneck, what can I do to get myself out of being the bottleneck? It usually comes down to sending it out to someone else, finding ways to be better with your time without being a time management expert, or just doing what we did very early in this, and that whole idea of finding the red rules and the green rules and looking at those green rules and going, do I need this? Do I really need this? Yeah, probably not. So the next 30 days, the job for you is to go from absolute chaos, which I'm sure you're possibly in right now, and go into auditing and subtracting. So run that killer stupid rules session where you go, what are the rules we've got in place? What's really helping that we can't get rid of? What is just, I can't understand why we do this. Prove that it's possible to make changes, because that makes week 2 much easier, which is then setting up a bit of a whiteboard or using a Trello board or something like that to then go, this is how I do the things I do. To do, doing, done. You might have a couple more columns there. For me, the 3, to do, doing, done. I'm not having a stuck thing. It stays in doing and annoys me until such time that I just go, okay, this has to be done. Let's get it done. That makes way for week 3, which is where you implement a quick fix. So one of those little small annoyances, like the little ramp that went into the staff room, or it could be removing an extra monitor if you don't really need it, or it could be adding another monitor if you feel like you need it. Whatever seems to work for you, just make it a quick, cheap, quick win, and that's something which you can immediately get a little bit of improvement, and you'll get a bit of a taste for it, because once you've improved something, you go, oh, that's so much better. It could be putting a fragrance on your desk in a reed diffuser. It could be, like in my case, getting my box of tissues sitting at my desk because I always have to wipe my brow to get rid of my shiny, oily forehead. That sort of stuff is really good for you. So just little 1% improvement will make it so much easier for you to go in week 4, review what happened to work, and then go, I got to keep doing this and I might just do some more. That's all it is. Baby steps, like so many things in life. We don't walk out of the womb. We have to learn how to walk step by step by step. And it takes a little bit of time. So think about it. Innovation, a habit, not a once-off event. Subtract things before you add them. That's what I do with my wardrobe. I don't buy a new t-shirt until I throw one out. Process before product. Fix something that's broken today. So make sure you just get it fixed rather than just fussing around and just going, I'm not going to fix this because it's just so silly. If it's silly, it's probably annoying a lot of people. And then act before strategizing when it comes to these things, because unless it's something absolutely critical and it's a compliance impacting activity that you do in your business, just get rid of it and see what happens. I'm doing that with some software. I'm just deleting the software and saying, okay, let's see if I ever really need it. I've got all these things down the bottom of my computer with these like applications, and I'm going, which ones of these am I actually using? I probably could look at deleting some and then think, what is that one stupid rule you can kill off tomorrow? Because we are so fertile for innovation because we're small enough to move quickly, especially those of you who are on this call are in small enough businesses you can actually move quickly. You don't have to ask head office or any of that sort of thing. But if it's a workplace, it might be a little different. So the biggest innovative change you can make is to do something more efficiently that you do every day. Others will notice and I'll go, how did you get all that done? You go, oh, I just simply started doing this. People don't question the status quo because they assume that someone much smarter than them knows why the status quo is there. When someone stops following it and starts succeeding, that gets noticed. So change your process today, tomorrow, next week. Just look at something you can dump because there's so many things we can do to make our businesses work that much more efficiently and effectively.